friend and soul sister, medium Sheila Applegate. So wonderful to have this conversation with you, Sheila. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We are two women who have gone through the phenomenon called the twin flame journey. We are guides to this, and really my heart was when I got this idea from guidance to have this was really to bring illumination, crystalline clarity, ease and comfort for all of those that are going through this phenomenon. And while I was going through it, you were the one person that I met on this journey that truly supported me, and we've stayed in contact ever since. So such a pleasure to have you here with me, love. And could you just, for our viewers, just introduce yourself in your own words and share a little bit about who you are and what you do in the world?
Sure. I am Sheila Applegate, and I work as a conscious life coach, a medium, a spiritual channel, but all of this together is always about helping people to tune into their own authentic truth and access the brilliance that we all have within us, which includes everything that I just said. Everyone, it's our natural state to do that. The twin flame has been a significant part of my journey that has allowed me and strengthened me in a way that I believe that I am more connected to the divine, and my gifts are amplified from that journey. So I do work with people from all over the world who are going through that journey because, well, just to start with a little story then, early on, I'm going to jump right in and then we can backtrack if you want, but I was studying metaphysics in the 90s, and we learned a whole bunch of things. I did not remember learning about the twin flame. And then there was this relationship in my life, and it wasn't romantic, but it was nothing that I had ever experienced before. And I didn't know what to make of this. And a friend said to me, Sheila, you're describing the twin flame. And I said, what? She's like, you were sitting right next to me in the class when we learned that. You heard it. But my mind must have blocked it out because it was part of my journey. So until I experienced it, I wasn't ready to hear about it. And then it was probably a year or so later that I went to a spiritual reader, and as she opened the door, and I knew her. So this was not her way of being. She was very, very professional, and you come in and you sit and you open up. But she opened the door and she's like, twin flames. She said, I have been hearing about twin flames since last night with you. And she did not know I was in a relationship of a twin flame. And she said, it's not just yours, it's people from around the world. It's like so many twin flames. And that was in the 90s or early 2000s. Maybe early 2000s, but yeah. So that's kind of my background as far as twin flames, and it's woven into everything I've done since then. So.
Right. And you know, everything you've done since then and what you do today, it so resonates with me because I too am working on supporting people enter into their multidimensionality. And it really is what I call natural divinity. So realizing we are divine, but how do we create a natural life that expands to the extent of actually having that connection with divine source? And the twin flame journey has been the piece for me that really brought up the issues that were impeding this, you know? So I had never heard of twin flames, never. And it was not something that I was looking for, but when it did show up in my life, immediately, I think 3 weeks after I'd ever heard of even the term, I met him. And I knew him and I walked that journey, and it's not an easy journey, but one of the reasons for this, and because I know we both have this, we want people to tune into their own journey, become their own highest guidance with their higher consciousness. The aim is really to debunk and demystify a lot of what might be going on. And I know I certainly had a lot of confusing, conflicting information that wasn't useful. But all of it is part of the journey. So my hope is whoever comes across this interview or watches this interview, it's going to be just at the right time, just what they needed to hear, and hopefully gives them the very next step of their particular journey. Very good. So how do we start this off?
Well, let me just say with what you were saying, that's one of the things that made me so excited to talk to you about this, is that understanding. Because even though twin flames have been a part of my work for many years, I stopped writing about it, talking about it publicly, probably over a decade ago, because to any extent, because there was so much misinformation out there, and I felt like anything I said was getting lost into that entanglement, and I just wanted to pull back. And like you said, it's not intentional misinformation. It's just it's a confusing process. And if you feel that you know about it, you're experiencing it, that's your truth in that moment.
Yes,
But there's more truth, right?
there is more to it. There is more to it. So both of us have come to a certain point where we kind of understood from the divine's perspective what the opportunity is or what the invitation is. Because I certainly know that when I was going through it, I thought I had found the dream. I thought I had found everything that I wanted. And I did. And in many ways, it was a coming home. It was an awakening to the initial template. And I'd never been more in love. And I had never felt love so deeply in my being that I thought it's forever. No doubt. So for those that have felt this, right, and this can be, and I want to move away from the term twin flame. Like it's not even about if it's a real twin flame or not a real twin flame, right? This opening of the heart, this opening and the depth of this love that we feel for this other being that you've also felt. How has it served you in your journey, Sheila, to feel that, and how has it helped your evolution?
How has it affected me? I would say I can't even imagine who I would be had that not come into my life. The twin flame came into my life when I was young. And I was not even a mom then yet. I had just gotten married, and I met my twin flame, and it was not a romantic relationship. There was a big age difference. That's not what the issue was at that time in our lives at all. It was just this huge opening and understanding, and navigating through that took many different phases in his life, as we went through I think 13 years on earth together, and then he crossed into the spirit world. So I can't even imagine who I would have been without that pivotal point in my life. But what it did, even in the chaos, is it helped me understand the world better. It helped me understand myself better. It was catapulted me into a path. It catapulted, but it still took a lot of years, but it was so rapid. I couldn't you can't hide with a twin flame. You couldn't understand it. Everything comes up to be healed. And I feel like because his life was going to be short, though we didn't know that at the time, I feel like we even condensed it in a really rapid speed with several different aspects of it as we went through those years. But the one thing that really, I think, came out of it is I found my way to oneness experience, but not just the concept of oneness and not the feeling of being in oneness in a meditation, but living in oneness. And I think that it's you can't deny that the other person is you, even though they have an earthly personality. And in our case, extremely different personality. And yet we were the same, so on the outside, we would have looked like we were not at all alike, but on the inside, we were identical. And his gifts were as strong as mine. And so it just, it fast speeds you into a sense of knowing God and then living that on earth. And that's what I've done. And then now I have with a Consciously Awesome Gnostic Adventure, I really have taken that journey, taken the twin flame aspect out of it, and help people to find, whether you have a twin flame or not, find that connection to all the different frequencies and bring it into earth. And I can't say that anything I have done would have been that way without him, because he came in before I started learning all of the things.
That is incredible. You know, it's so funny to hear the words, because this is indeed where so much of the non-intentional misinformation comes, is because we all use different words. So I love how you say I was on a journey to oneness, and the twin flame helped me live this, right? And I've been on teaching the journey of wholeness, which, how do I come into the whole of me so I can be connected to the one, right? And I've
Right.
always heard spiritual teachers talk about oneness, and yet in my human experience, I was like, oneness is an abstract idea until I am at least one with my own self, right?
Right.
And the twin flame journey indeed was what I noticed really was the next evolution to everything I'd understood. Because within my work of Arise, I had understood we were 4 bodies: mental, emotional, etheric, and physical. And these bodies were subjected to divine will of the soul. And so I understood that this was kind of like a roadmap for wholeness. But it was until my twin flame journey that cracked my heart open, right?
Right.
That really brought the divine love into the picture. I didn't even know I could love that much until I met that being.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how you say you were the same on the inside. For me, it was romantic. And when I met him, my divine counterpart, it was really amazing because he recognized me straight away too. Even though he was not spiritual, he'd come from a military background, had spent his whole life in an institution as a career. And so when we met, there was a lot of dynamics that played out. But one of the things that was beautiful is when I took him on a guided meditation. I think it was the second day we were together. I took him on a guided meditation, as I do, took him to the 12th dimension, as I do. And this, again, like, is my natural ability. He saw his late mom, and he saw many other people that were on the other side of the veil. And then he looked at me and he said, "Oh my God, we are the same." So he could see his spirit self, and he could see my spirit self, and we were the same being. He said,
Right.
"Everyone else is different, but we're the same." So spirit showed him that. However, then you think, well, if he saw it, then he knows, right? Except that's not how consciousness works.
Right.
That's not how consciousness works. So they can see it. And so for those out there that have a divine counterpart that has kind of like had that epiphany, but then it kind of like they go into forgetfulness. And we have to walk out this journey. Using some of the twin flame words, did you have a runner chaser dynamic at all in your connection?
Yes. I have let go, like, I don't listen to the outside words, so I
Exactly.
don't know that that's going around in there, but absolutely yes. And every, um, in a way, again, we went through many different forms of relationship throughout, but
Mhm.
there is this, yeah, because when one person is feeling confident and moving towards that union consciously, or physically in the world, um, there's a freedom in it that allows the other one to run and pull back, right? Because it's intense, right? But then if the one that was moving forward gets starts to be pulled back, then the automatic pull, it's like magnets, right? And so, and it gets so extreme. And the other piece is that it is a mirror into yourself like nothing else. So, and that person knows you. It doesn't matter how long you've physically known each other, what the dynamic of your relationship is, how they know, how much they know, are aware spiritually, like they know the inside of you, and you can't hide anything. And they're going to know what you were even hiding from yourself. So it's intense. And the periods apart are as valuable as the periods when you're physically together, if not more valuable.
Absolutely, hun. I was 3 years living with my twin in an assumed relationship. You know, this was a committed relationship where both of us thought that we'd be married forever. And yet it was the hardest relationship I've ever had. And of course, because I've been spiritual my whole life, I've been aware of my multidimensionality my whole life, I did think that somewhere the divine made a mistake because I thought I was way further than he was. But it's like you say, and I know that there's a lot of women that, or even a lot of the divine feminine, more counterpart, is going to feel that we're further, right? That we understand a bit more. What I've learned though, especially in separation, is that there is no higher or lower or further or less evolved. It is really a mirror. And that is so hard to understand.
Mhm.
I actually only learned, I understood what the mirror is because I remember in my journey, like I had felt like I'd waited for this love for thousands of years. That's what it felt like a longing perspective. And I had a twin who just found the intimacy so intense. Sorry, I've got flies like just buzzing around at the moment. They just decided to join our interview. Um, so he just wanted to run from this intimacy, and he was like, I really love you, but just stay over there. Just stay over there, you know? And the rejection of that, even if we were living together, was absolutely devastating to me.
Mhm.
And it's only been in the separation period, coming back to what you said, that the separation is as powerful and useful as the time together. It's been in this separation that I've realized the difference between the love that is real and unconditional and the codependency and wounds of abandonment
Right.
that I was feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's because like if you ask me, do I love him still? It's I could not love him. I could not love him, no matter what happened or what went down. But every turn, the divine was asking, can you forgive even this?
Hmm.
And reflecting a mirror. And I had awareness of this. I remember one day he rejected me for something, and I felt into the rejection like a deep void, like a pit of hell that I just fell into. And I realized in that awareness, I'm not being upset because he rejected me this one night. I am feeling the rejection that I have always felt as a soul, or what I now call the wound of separation.
Right. And I think that's so important because it goes back to the separation from the divine or God or oneness. And it's not even a separation, but the illusion, right? That moment when in our existence we became an aspect of oneness that had awareness outside of oneness. And so within us, we have our DNA at the core, our spiritual DNA has abandonment issues. It doesn't matter how much you were loved in this lifetime. And even if you are loved, there's death. And so we are going to feel that with some people somewhere, but it goes back to and I don't often use the word God anymore just because I like to be more inclusive, but in this conversation and how I felt at that time, it was the abandonment and anger at God for abandoning me.
Yes.
Um, which is an illusion, of course, but if we don't face the emotional imprint in our soul of that truth, we can't remember oneness. We can't live and feel oneness while being human. And
Correct.
that's like the mastery, right? Like that's what could transform the world. You know?
It truly is. It
Yeah.
truly is. And I have no doubt that divine love will absolutely transform the world. And I think it's the only power that can.
Yeah.
So one of the exciting things about the twin flame journey, and for those that are on in this conversation that are listening, that I want to encourage is no twin flame journey is looking the same, because it's about your specific wounding of separation or your specific illusion of separation, and how the divine orchestrates the perfect counterpart to show you the mirror. And I would say all of life is a mirror of our separation, right? But that twin flame is really up close and personal. And it just makes us feel what the average Joe cannot.
Right.
Um, and I remember giving up my life to go and be with him. You know, like I had a life in Europe and I had a house and everything. But the moment I met him, I was like, this is why I'm alive, is to be with him. So there was no doubt in my mind, and it made perfect sense to root up and leave. So, of course, when the shadows come up and it looks like the relationship's not going to work, we kind of think the divine made a mistake. So, for those that might be in that stage, like God, source, universe, the law of attraction, none of it is working because I've done everything. I've given my everything for this connection. Why is it not working? Right? What words of guidance could you share with people that are feeling that right now, sweetheart?
The You know what, when we say it's not working, we're talking about a specific form of relationship that we think it should have.
Yeah.
And that the twin flame will not fit in a form of relationship. It defies all form, goes beyond all form, but can take form in various ways. The only way that I have found people to be, I don't want to say successful, because if you're in a chaotic relationship with a twin flame right now, that is success because you're on your healing journey. And it is going to be, you're doing it. You're in it in any form, you're doing it. And even if you don't know if it's your twin flame, like you said in the beginning, deep, close soulmates are very similar, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if this term is actually real. We're describing a specific experience that people are having with other people. And that's all we need to know, right? But when we want to put it in a form, a specific form, and especially romantic, because romantic energy, sexual energy is creation energy in the most dense physical form,
Yeah.
meaning it goes up from there. Your twin flame is going to create creation energy with you, because it's trying to create that energy of remembrance, of merging in consciousness, because we never separate, but remembering and letting go into that merging of consciousness into that one bigger soul than the two. And it's not even two halves, you are complete. But I see the twin flame energy as, if oneness is a big glob of light, let's say, and it's kind of like cells dividing, then it divided into two to feel itself. And that's the alpha and the omega, or the divine feminine and the divine masculine.
Right.
And then that keeps dividing. And maybe the next layer was what we knew as gods and goddesses, but the soul that is your twin flame is that very last drop of oneness or God that you expanded from, not even separated from, but expanded from before having your individual identity that has gone through however many lifetimes. And so right before that, our 4 other cells, or 2 others and 4 others, they're going to feel almost exactly as intense, just not quite, right? So it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum of it. Some people think, oh my gosh, I have a twin flame relationship, and they do a ton of work on it, and then the next thing they're like, oh wait, that was not. Now I'm in a twin flame relationship. I understand now. So usually the people who they're bug-eyed and like, I don't know what to do, but but it has, because that's where the separation illusion came from. That's how the relationship has to go. So we have to merge again on the higher levels, and let that union in the higher frequencies allow and form whatever fluid form the relationship will be. And because the creation energy is there, and we have so many stories about romantic relationships, when that possibility is there, then it's easy to want to put it in there. And that is the most confining form of relationship that we have on earth. We have no problem loving 2, 3, 4 of our children, right? But we're only supposed to love one man or one woman, right? Or one counterpart. But and then we're supposed to have, in our romantic, we're supposed to exclude all others, and we're not supposed, and that love doesn't do that, and twin flame doesn't do that. Twin flame love moves outward. So when you're trying to push it into any tiny form, and it's difficult if someone is like a mother child, or sister brother, because they're dealing with all those dynamics. The form that they chose around it maybe gives them a cushion to not have to go down those ways of thinking. But there's this intensity, but then in those situations, there's also a like, but we're in it, like that's family, right? Where romantic is the most difficult, because we have so many limits on what that form means.
Exactly. And we are also so invested in how it needs to turn out. and
Right.
and how, I mean, I remember that one of the biggest learnings that I got, because the pain that we go through and the heartbreak, it really does have a function. And it really, really does. It really has a function. And like we both mentioned, it's we couldn't be who we are today. We couldn't serve as we do today. So I'd love to jump in into the benefits of it, because we have all that pain, which is unearthing the limits of love. And what I've really learned, Sheila, was I was trying to control love. And we think we can control love. But this is a kind of love. So I think the difference is that when we're in the twin flame, we realize we don't control shit here. We don't. We cannot. I've tried to switch it off. I try to cut cords. I've tried to, it's like I've got to get over it. And it's mind over heart. And spirit says, not that easy. It just doesn't work. And as frustrating as that may be, that really is a favor that spirit is doing. Because essentially, the twin flame journey has come to represent for me like part of the evolutionary path to realizing we don't control love. But love is something that flows through us and in us, to express the highest version of ourselves. But that does mean that the ego will die.
I say I get that, because I know that's what the most people say, and it's definitely an ego's journey, but I say the ego evolves.
Amen.
Okay.
So we're going to take both of those, because we are talking in a 50
Right. Exactly.
level.
Right.
There is no polarity. So yes, the ego dies, and yes, the ego evolves, because it is this death and rebirth that is the evolutionary process.
Right. The primitive ego, evolve. Death is a transformation, like the phoenix. Yeah. And then so that instinct, because that triggers all our instinct for survival, right?
Yes.
Because now we're not safe, because a part of us isn't in our control, right? We realize there's a part of us and we don't have control over that, which is very frightening. And so the ego, yeah, it's that. And then again, in that polarity, it's the other extreme, because it's feeling the deepest love that it has ever experienced, this love without borders, even in the chaos, right? In between the chaos, there's this love. Ego is equally afraid of that love as it is of the separation, because ego's job was to keep us alive on earth. It's our primitive instinct to survive. And until this understanding comes in, that light, that intensity of love is only experienced after death. So when that intensity of love comes in, it flares the ego in its desire to protect us from death. So it creates not just this, oh, and sometimes that happens to people just through meditation, right? You start to bring in more light, your ego comes up because it thinks that you're going into the light, but when it does that with the twin flame, both aspects come up. And so it is this, it can be in the beginning, this roller coaster of like, oh my God, I'm dying if something goes wrong with it. And blissfully, oh my God, I'm dying when it's going well, right? So it's this up and down, and the ego is just, eradicated, I think. Like it's erratic, and then it just becomes something more. And so it is the quickest way to evolving your ego too. You don't have a choice.
Because we don't control love. And this was pretty incredible for me to realize that we don't control life. And I believe so much of the illusion of our conditioning is, I get to control this. I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen. Life has always proven to us, if we really think about it, that it doesn't work that way. Actually, life is going to do what life is going to do in a cyclical way, and our soul is always guiding, and that is, the fifth dimensional truth of it. On the third dimension, though, we are told that if I just get all the steps right, then I'll make it. And I think that that's where the heartbreak is, or the evolution of the ego comes in. That it might not turn out the way your ego thought it would, or that we perceive it can, but it really is something higher than you could ever imagine at that point. And I remember when I came to you in that chaos, and I remember when you helped me just reconnect to my divine self again. And I knew, okay, we got this. The divine is in control. This is about me surrendering to the divine and learning to embody that divine light as, your will be done.
Right.
But where am I not trusting? Yeah, thy will be done. And so often my high self, in those really deep, dark places that I would be led to evolve, I would often hear the guidance, trust me. Trust me, just trust me. And I'm like, trust you. You brought me here, you crazy. Trust you. What I will say is that when the relationship, the physical 3D romantic relationship fell apart, it felt like I'd been broken in a million pieces. And yet there was such a deep calm, such a deep comfort, because I no longer had to control this other human being that was out of my control. Right. And I was now in my own energy, and that actually felt like a relief.
Right. And that can happen to a lot of people, and sometimes it happens in multiple times throughout the process, right?
It might be various separation points,
Right. Yeah.
So what actually, what was so interesting about that period, and this I hope as an encouragement for many who might be going in and that off, the greatest fear was letting go. The greatest fear was, if I leave him to his own devices, he's lost forever, and then I'll never get to experience this great love that I know in my core being I'm here to experience, right? But it was actually in the letting go, in the trusting of the divine, in the flow of divine love and the reconnection with my own sovereignty and my own soul, did I find peace. And what happened next was actually incredible, because I remember meeting you and you were saying you were a medium, and I had this, again, polarity thinking of mediumship. because the mediums I've met, they work a lot sometimes with the astral plane, and I have learned through my journey to go to the crystalline, to the Christ consciousness, to the light. And I had a lot of fear around the fourth dimensional astral plane and demons and all these, not realizing these are aspects of my consciousness and my fear programming, right? But I too am a medium, of course, except my route was different. I never channeled. I would just create the field where these beings could arrive. Once I let go of my twin flame journey, I had an activation of my spiritual powers that was profound. And what was interesting is because I was always spiritual, my counterpart was not. I realized that in the relationship, I had been denying my spiritual self. And I had sacrificed my spiritual self for this love. I had made myself small in order for him to be comfortable, because he was already a bit fearful of the light, and now it was really worse. So it's almost like if I said yes to God, I was going to say no to my relationship. And this was the big conundrum for me.
Mm-hmm. And which then you realize that you're saying yes to both once you like you get
And that's it, right? Because when I activated, I couldn't lose him. Even though we weren't physically together, we still were together, and we've still been a year and a half still in communication, aware that we're evolving and changing. But now I would never give up my sovereign self, my spiritual giftings, my purpose in the world. I will never give this up for anyone.
Right. I think that's so important to say. And you're speaking on the spiritual level, and absolutely all of that, but it's your authenticity, your power, because I feel like the therapist in me, having worked with domestic violence before, it's similar. Like, I could see where someone could be in a domestic violence situation and think that it was a twin flame, or maybe it is, because a twin flame could get that crazy. But it's really important, no matter what the name of the relationship is, that we know that going towards our higher self, taking care of ourselves, setting our healthy boundaries, and that's not even like taking somebody out, but this is who I'm going to be. You either match the frequency or I'll catch you later, And so it's important to stand in that truth, no matter what the name of the relationship is.
Absolutely. And I had pretty much decided I was going to be me, because I'd been on a journey of authenticity. When I launched my first company in 2012, I called it Authentic Pro. So I was already like, authenticity is what I'm going to be about. And the authenticity is how he actually recognized me, fell in love with me. I attracted him, right? Because of that. But then he was like, I love this energy. And if the light gets too intense, I'm going to control it.
Right.
And I can control it through rejection. I can control it through belittling. I can control it through all sorts of, and we will call that like narcissistic behaviors, which is really survival patterns for fear.
Right.
But at a certain point, we need to stand up for ourselves. And that's what I really learned from this journey, is like how I, as a person, had almost taken myself out of my own power so that I could keep a false harmony with my twin.
Right.
And it doesn't work.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work.
And here's the frustrating part, is like, and that's why I mean, like, the control of love is like, but I try to do everything right. I made myself as small as possible. I try to speak his language. I try to match him. And the divine is doing the exact opposite. It actually wants us to come the wholeness of ourselves, the oneness with ourselves. And what we're actually fighting is who this being really wants to be and express itself. And for me, it came to the point of like, Lizette, will you sell yourself out for anyone? And the answer is never again. I'm the one. It's
Right.
like, I am the one. And yes, I will love you always and I'll love everyone, but I am the one um, that needs to be true to who I am. And yet, in this journey, no one has ever brought me closer to who I am than this incredible human being. So everything can be washed in compassion and forgiveness. Everything,
Right.
you know. And I
Mhm.
really had a lot of compassion because I've been working with people for a long time and working as a guide. I knew every hurt was his hurt reflected, and I knew where he
Right.
came from. So there was this understanding, there was this compassion, but not at the cost of my sovereignty. So sovereignty was my particular lesson. Well, it's both of ours because he has the same. He's also learning
Right. Right. And a twin flame really isn't going to tolerate you belittling yourself, even though the form might say, oh, it should be better if you be like that. You don't put up with it. A twin flame just doesn't, because the twin flame knows your authentic self and you know their authentic self. And so even in the physical form, it's rare for a twin flame to be okay with one, like, like you don't, the dis the disconnect when someone is trying to be something that they're not in order to make it work. um it just creates havoc. And the other thing is that it's going to create it doesn't just create, it isn't just about two people. It changes every relationship that you have,
Yes.
and it makes every relationship that you have better. But that doesn't mean there isn't a path to that, right? Like um
And there really is a path to that, which is incredible. But I remember so often my counterpart would say, and this was the paradox, and I find that there is the paradox. So the paradox is what's creating the havoc, because on one point I remember him saying in a moment of frustration, I can't be him. And what he was referring to was the one I am longing for, but he also knows that he is him in his highest form, but
right,
he's being confronted by the unhealed aspects of himself, which I will not allow.
right,
And he's doing the same for me. So we actually are elevating each other by confronting that which is unhealed. So sometimes we do need to separate so we can heal those aspects of ourselves. And what was also very humbling was to realize that my healing journey, even though I have modalities and I do sound healing and vibrational healing, and it works for so many, I was like, please let me help you. And he was like, no, don't want your healing stuff. So his path of healing is not going to be my path. Again, I'm trying to control, I'm trying to fix what.
right.
So that can be very frustrating. But um, there's a very important nugget that we're getting to here, and I feel is where this conversation is kind of coming to conclude. Well, not a conclusion, but a point that I believe we're both making, right? Um, which for me really is this, Sheila, and I just would love to get your feedback on if this is your conclusion. For me, this whole journey of twin flame exposed to me where I was afraid to be myself.
Mhm.
And it exposed to me where I was not free, what I had given up in my authenticity because I believed I needed to give it up so I could be loved.
Right.
And the truth is, the love was within me. That same love I gave him was the love that I feel in me. And it was really incredible. There was one moment I had recorded a song from actually the Dixie Chicks called Let Him Fly. And it's a beautiful song. It's like, ain't no talking to this man. It was like, and it was just a liberating song. I'm going to let him fly. And I was listening to it back, and spirit opened. I saw a staircase in the fifth dimension, and the staircase just went right across the Atlantic Ocean from Europe to Costa Rica, where we used to live. And I felt myself being transported there. And I traveled to the house, and I was actually like flying over his bed, and I saw him lying on his bed, and he was like staring up into space. He couldn't see me, but I was hovering over him, and even with my tears and my heart wide open, I looked at him and I said, baby, I still love you, but now my love is free. Now it's for the whole world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it never ends, this beautiful love of ours. It just doesn't need to fit in the box that we thought it needed to fit in.
Yeah,
And that's what I took out of it.
that's beautiful. And there's so many more phases to go through. Who knows, right?
Oh, heaven.
Who
I
knows? I mean, maybe, but for me, I said we went through so many different reflections of relationship to each other. And just when it felt like we reached that place of harmony, like we got this, we know what we're doing, we're expressing this, we understand things are going, he died, and that piece I think is important to bring up, because that is our greatest fear, right? Like that we're going to lose that person, and in the illusion that we're going to lose them through death. And I remember at his wake, he'd been like, my children had known him their whole life, and at his wake, people were concerned that one of my children wasn't grieving. And my child said to me, they don't get it. He never left us. And he didn't. Like, he was around our house so much after he left. And over time, it's changed and it's transformed. And sometimes he shows up very much in his personality that he was in this last lifetime. And then sometimes he's just emergence of me. It's I am more whole. We are one, and there is no feeling of separation. But that transformation also just let us do more. Like he in the spirit world, he goes by 2 feathers, and that had to do with something from before he left. But I have met people that have 2 feathers as a guide before I know them. And and they describe him to the T from his personality, with details in there that could not be coincidental. And we see him in film, and people who knew him will call up and they'll be like, he's, he's in there. Like, did you see him? And he shows up everywhere now. And I love bigger. Like I'm in a beautiful relationship that is so much love. And with Zach, he says to me, thank you so much for letting me love you so big, because that's the other part of it, right? We don't let love in at that level. And then this breaks it open. So now you're capable of loving big, not just giving love, because I think it's easier to give love than receive love. But holding that, letting people love you so deep. So I have such deep relationships now, with friends, with partners, with my children. It's just, I love in a level I never knew that I could before. And I was pretty good at loving most of my life.
Yes. And that is such an important point, love, because I was also very loving, and I was devout to love, and I knew that my life was about love, period.
Right.
What I was not aware, and what the twin flame journey really, really helped me, was to understand how the light works and how consciousness works. Most of us don't understand that. We want light, and everyone is searching for this light, this divinity. But what we don't understand is when the divinity comes, it exposes that which is hurt. And I could not fathom until now at how hurt I was without even being aware of it, because we cover that piece to survive. But as we are growing in surrender and we're opening our heart, we are actually also healing all those layers that have kept us out of union,
Right.
out of the sacred union within. And now I'm so passionate about my divine feminine and my divine masculine within myself, so much that I've seen in my counterpart, like so much. And I would say he's the masculine, I'm the feminine, but then I was denying my masculine, and
Right.
I was a corporate woman, an executive woman. I kind of gave up my masculine because I was burning out. So when I put that away, then I became this polarized feminine. And so coming back into balance, coming back into sacred union with myself, the whole of me, um, has been a journey that I could never ever have wanted to miss, no matter how hard it was, because the truth was that pain was there, honey. It was
Right.
there. So it wasn't his fault. And I can actually prove that he never hurt me. And I'll tell you, it was funny. I was on my way to be with my counterpart in 2019, January. And before I went, I spent 5 days on retreat in Mexico, kind of like preparing. And it was beautiful because I had my initiation at the Mayan temples. And the Mayan wisdom has now been revealed in a deeper way to me. So I use it a lot. But that was the initiation, and then I went off to my twin flame. But before I went on this retreat, there was a moment where I imagined I was going to lose this potential. We weren't in a relationship yet. We'd just been speaking on the phone for about 2 months. I'd known him since my childhood, but we had had a new connection, and it just rekindled something. It was this twin flame thing I couldn't understand. I felt so much pain at just the suggestion that I might lose it, that it brought me to my knees. It was pain that it was more even intense than when my father died. And I believe that was spirit showing me the chasm that was going to be healed during this journey.
It's beautiful.
And so he never hurt me. He was in perfect assignment from the divine
Yeah.
to be just so beautiful and so right that I loved him all the ways I did, and for him to expose all the ways that I had not allowed myself to be loved. And now I'm like, I wouldn't even want a romantic relationship with him right now, because there's no way I could be in a relationship or partnership with someone who isn't spiritually aligned, hearing the divine, devoted to evolution, devoted to energy mastery. I couldn't even do it to myself now, because I know what I'm here to do on the planet. I'm on mission now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So for all of those of you that are listening that might be in that way of like, if I lose this, I don't get my mission. No, it's actually when you focus on mission, when you focus on sovereignty, everything falls into divine order and place again.
Right. Yeah.
So please,
And for anyone who is like, well, what if I don't know my twin flame, or is searching for a twin flame to get that? You don't need that. There's easier ways. I created a path to do that for people, but also, there are other ways to do it. And the truth is, you are already
on the
in
journey.
union with your twin flame, and you can do that vibrationally to be conscious of it. It can come through other people if there's some learning you need to do, but when you merge in and remember your union with your twin flame, then you truly are a whole and complete being,
Yes,
ready to receive and give love without neediness.
without neediness, without codependency, right? Without
Right.
condition. And I thank you so much for this, because I think we can start bringing this together, because it's just as you say. We started this conversation saying, like, I would never have skipped this, even though it was hard. because it does bring us to that place of deeper wholeness. Does the journey end? Never, because we are
Uh-huh.
infinite love. We are so much love. Um, so yeah, I'm at the place now where I'm like, bring it on. Bring it on, because yeah, but trusting the process a little more. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Beautiful conversation, and I'm so grateful for the work you do in the world, and for the work I do in the world, and for the work that every single person who's will listen to this and resonate and understand, for the work that you do in the world. They do, because this is our human evolution, is bringing back divine love onto the earth. The earth, the mama, as I say, mama wants to sing a new song, and only the song in the beginning will do. She doesn't want this half-assed romantic Hollywood nonsense. She wants deep, pure, unconditional love, which is her vibration of planetary consciousness. Thank you, my darling, so much.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been such a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.